Let's see. Alpine Moon. 2 Shattering Spree. 3 Cinder Ponds. Never dependent casts a non-creature spell, deals 1 damage to that player, sack and destroy an artifact or enchantment, deals 2 damage to its controller. How long do we have before the start? Minute and a half. Nice. Even running, only running Stomping Ground. Nice. 33 seconds before we start. Whole mess of 1-drops. All right, what do we got for round number 1? Land heavy. Just good enough. Opponent has revealed no companion. In the blind, game 1. I've seen worse. Not particularly thrilled about this hand, but living end. Looks like living end. Don't really have much main deck to deal with living end, but by not much, I mean basically nothing. Yeah, we'll get down Ren. Or would I rather? I guess I'd rather yeah, well, Inquisition. Pretty good chance it misses, but on the offset that like their last card was another Cascade spell. All right, so we should have a third Blood Crypt in the deck. Oh no, I took it out. Oh man. All right, that's fine. That's fine. All is fine. So play you. Spyro, ditch everything else. You. So go. And hope we aren't dead. All right, we'll go to game two. Let's see. Kumez. Good day, sir. What would you play on an LGS environment? The regular Grixis Shadow or the Demir version? Um, like really, it depends on local meta. Uh, for me personally, I'd probably play more Grixis, but I think if your meta is full of like living end and combo decks and stuff like that, I'd probably go Demir. But for the most part, it just depends on the local environment. Make sure there's nothing on my board I really care about. I'd actually prefer Liliana over like another Lightning Bolt or over Ren and 6. About that. All right. Functional hand. Bit of everything: mill, dredge, hammer, living in, Rakdos, goblins, creativity, blue eye control. So like Demir is gonna struggle against uh like hammer time, goblins, dredge, and Grixis is gonna have a little more rough time against like creativity, blue white control. So kind of depends on what you want to put a priority on in terms of having a rough time again. Which I know is kind of like a sucky answer to hear, but it's how it is. All right. You have the foundation breaker? Yeah, you do. All right. So let's another blood crypt. I think I'm gonna play Lily and tick up and then play the chalice in case my opponent chooses to pick a force negation over Lily instead. Then talk about it a lot. If my opponent's got a force negation here, all right. So like if they had the foundation breaker for the first chalice, found a force negation for the second one, and had a living in spell, probably not much I can do about that game. Like that's just chalked from the start. So in matchups like this, you do kind of have to recognize that there's going to be a number of times that you see the hate you need and it just doesn't matter. But at this point, I'm just trying to get a clock down that can end the game before they untap. So I do have a stomping ground still in the deck. Got it. Thanks. I'm thinking of getting the monkey, but I'm not sure it's going to survive the next ban wave. And it might not. We're kind of at that point where I recommend anybody who's considering buying an expensive modern card. So like Ragavan, Omnath, Pitch Elementals, whatever. Like only do so if you are okay taking the loss if it doesn't work out. Because honestly, there's like a reasonable chance that it won't. It might not happen right away, but it's kind of what we're working with. All right, so I've got lethal with the shadow. If I fetch, then I've got a Ren ping. So let's go to combat first. I'm going to go ahead and go for this battle rage. And if my opponent like just lets this through, they're dead. If they have a counter for the battle rage, I can Ren ping. If they have something like Brazen Borrower bounce the shadow, then I want to be able to replay the shadow, tick up the lily, and get back a land and keep ticking up Ren to the ultimate next turn. So I would rather do whatever I can to keep from ticking down the Ren. So I don't want to like start with pinging them with Ren and then attack with Shadow, and then have them Brazen Borrower because now I'm farther off the Ren, and I don't really need to do that. So, all right, Soul Chalice. They did not see Unlicensed Hearse and didn't see Endurance. That's a little bit of a plus here. Don't think I'm changing up much for game 2 or game 3. Okay. I would like another green card for endurance. Never mind. Scratch the endurance plan. So now it comes down to if my opponent's got a functional hand in a ley line, can't do anything about it. Just have to accept that as a possibility. I'm probably casting that, right? Endurance isn't doing anything for me. So I go 16. Let's see what we hit. Cast Shadow, put it in the graveyard in case I get to a point where I might have to, like if they have a Violent Outburst or something next turn, I can fetch Shock before they resolve it. Then I can get the Shadow back. If they ban Ragavan or Ren plus the Elementals, I assume the meta is going to change dramatically. Oh, yeah. Absolutely will change a lot. So one thing I really don't want to do here is put my opponent in. It's going to sound really weird. I don't want to put my opponent in a corner to where I think they're likely to just like go for it because they have to. It's a little bit of a tactic against like storm decks where if you put your opponent into like worst possible spot for them, then they just have to go for it. There's nothing they can do. And if you're not prepared to kill them right there, it can be very, very problematic. So I can't ping them. But unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to do that. But if they don't have a Brazen Borrower there into turn, they might just be dead. You are currently dead on board. Nice. All it takes is casting a bunch of our opponent's Shardless agents. Shardless is like on that list of cards I really want to make work in a shadow deck. Like, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to get down to below 13 life on turn 3. We can put a bunch of cards in the deck so that Shardless doesn't like miss. Like we can put draw spells or hand disruption or whatever. Take out like some of the counter spells or rely more on things like mystical dispute post board. just make sure that's like a value card. But the fact is, it's like never gonna hit what you want it to hit more often than not. Can't really run like Drown in the Lock because they might not have a creature to hit. They might not have or you can't counter a spell. But Dress Down gets pretty off of it. I don't know. I want it to be better, but it's not. So between rounds, we're gonna be messing around with some brews. There was a Jund aggro deck that 5-0'd a league with just like Channeler, Ragavan, Bloodbraid Marauder, Goy Street Wraith Bauble. So it has like the entire Shadow base, but it's running like Unholy Heat, Tarfire, Seal of Fire, all this stuff. So I was like, what if we take like this shell and just like swap out the Bloodbraid Marauders for Shadows, just a more consistent, aggressive threat, and replace like maybe a couple of these or like tribal ish damage spells or whatever, Tarfire, Seal of Fire, with just like Thought Seizes, and went something around this route. We could add the second seal back in, and we could add like the second Tarfire back in, something like that. I was kind of wondering what this would look like. Blood Crypt, Overgrown Tomb, Stomping Ground we got. And probably add like another land in here. Just do like all the catacombs. Get rid of the mesas. Get rid of the mountain for a forest. But it just looked like they kind of took the initiative of going super aggressive. And I was just kind of wondering what that would look like. It's like we usually don't play Dragon's Rage Chandler. Really not a fan of that card. But I mean, obviously, if it works for somebody, it's got to have some amount of merit. The sideboard is like cut and dry what they had, so that might need to be something else. But for everybody just kind of tuning in, we just finished up the first round of the preliminary. We beat Living End, so we're just kind of waiting on the second round to start. Usually, preliminary rounds go a little bit faster than like challenge rounds because, as you see, we only have 32 players. Yeah, so usually don't have as much that you're or as many times you're waiting on somebody. Didn't really see who all was in here. Sandy Dog, Demonic Tutors, Crusher Bot. Back here. So that was one list I wanted to think about trying out, and the other was I wanted to think about redoing Mardu, and Obosh came to mind. Like, would I want to do a list with Obosh and essentially like cut this column, but everything else would be okay? Or the alternative would be like more of a 2020 style or 2021 style Rakdos list with like Scourge of the Skyclaves and Ragavan, Channeler, something. But I just didn't know if like Obosh would be worth it. Obviously not in the Scourge of the Skyclaves option, but in the variation of Shadow overall. Because you can run like Ragavan, Bolt, Swift Spear, Soul Scar or something like that. You've got Thoughtseize, Inquisition, Shadow, Unearth, Push, Unholy Heat. In the 3 drop, you've got Dismember, Blood Moon, Bone Crusher, Spyro, Obnixilis, Lightning Skelemental if you want it, Agadeem's Awakening, Liliana of the Veil, Magus of the Moon, Fulminator, and then Street Wraith is a 5 drop, so you can run Street Wraith. But I honestly have no clue if it would be worth exploring or not. Like, I don't know. Got Lava Dart too. Probably not really worth it, but it's like if we were Obosh. Dogfish is gonna hate me for removing Skelemental from the list. And like, I'm really not a fan of the prowess threats. That's 71 cards. Pedro, what's up? Cut a knob. I feel like we could make 8 more cuts to this fairly easily. Like, probably don't really want to cut Bomat Courier. Bomat's so fun. But like, one of the biggest issues I saw with this kind of variation is you have a really tough time answering Murktide. Unless you're running like Vendetta or something, or like Liliana of the Veil, like a sorcery speed 3 drop. I saw one list that was running Murderous Rider, but then you have to have the double swamp if you've got like Blood Moon out. That doesn't really seem where I want to be. How much longer we got? 7 matches to go. Hanging out for a little bit longer. Um, Unearth seems like really good with Spyro. Less good with everything else in the deck, so it might not be necessary. Obnixilis was kind of a whatever one. Street Wraith could probably go, but I was just thinking like it would help out the consistency with shadows if you're running a bunch of basics. I guess really this list isn't running a bunch of basics, but some number of basics. But if you're running Oboch, like you can't run Turok. That's a pretty big one. So I think honestly it's going to be better as just like a red black kind of like older shadow list. But then we ran the Bomat Courier list before. So maybe we just need to like stick to this and update. But I know we trophied with it once and then ran it back and got like absolutely demolished. So I don't really know what this deck needs. I know it needs a 4th Blood Crypt. Why? Why are these all like Return to Ravnica Blood Crypts? to cut a land. Ugh. But I think if you're running like two colors and red is one of them, and your mana base isn't super skewed towards the other color, you probably need to be running Blood Moon right now, especially with Leyline Binding just like absolutely everywhere. So that's kind of something I want to take more notice of. Like if we find room for some number of Blood Moons in here, maybe we could trim on the Dothies. Trim like an Alpine Moon. Are we bringing in Blood Moon and Turok in the same matchups? Blood Moon's not that good against blue-white control. It's not really that good against four colors, so probably not. Cut down to one Hearst. Got a Dothy because we're seeing less and less living end. I say as we just played against it. Then Bomac Courier is a big question mark. Like, this is probably better off just being Dragon's Rage Channeler. Which I know I hate to say, but it's a little bit better of a clock. And the evasion isn't irrelevant. Not really a fan of blessing, but let's see, like a blessing over an inquisition. Just kind of to help those turns where you need a scourge to untap one time for a battle rage or something. But usually what I hate about plans like that is it requires a lot of setup, like hand sculpting. And most of the time in modern, you just don't have that many turns to do that. It's kind of like why Infect has fallen off a lot. James coming in with a follow. Thank you so much. Hope you're having an awesome Thursday wherever you're at in the world. Appreciate you coming around and hanging out. Oh, so we just got like a few more rounds to go. Well, it might be longer than I thought because like this match is still in game one. Jay Halbs, thank you so much. I mean, we're off to a 1-0 start, beating like one of our worst matchups, so I can't complain too much. But I am going to complain about this game that's still in game one. So, whoops. What can we do in the meantime? How about Scryfall Art Game? We'll look at modern cards. What card is this? I do not have the slightest clue. Deck looks dope. Let's pull up the deck so everybody can. Well, this is the preliminary deck. The other one I'm just kind of like messing around with. But we ran into Living End round one. Game one, they living ended us. Game two, we saw Chalice into a top deck second Chalice that ran away with it. Game three, we saw a Chalice and an Endurance, but they had a pregame Leyline of Sanctity, so Chalice luckily carried us there with like a. We also cast two of their Shardless agents game three off Ragavan hits. One hit a Shadow that went to the graveyard, but we were able to. We would be able to like fetch and chalk and get the Shadow back if they cast the Living End. And the other one I think cascaded into a Wrenn and 6. So we are slowly yet surely waiting for the next round to start. Yeah, Chalice is good. Game two, we played a Chalice on turn one to dodge Grief, and they did Foundation Breaker it. So thankfully we found the second one. But game three, we got to dodge the Foundation Breaker. But I don't know what we're gonna play after the preliminary. That's why I was kind of messing around with some of these other lists. Probably don't want Blood Moon in this list. But I think the Rakdos one, which it's likely no longer going to be Obosh Shadow, but I don't know. I'm really like not sure if Obosh is worth it. And if so, do I need to just go like way in on the lock pieces? Because I mean, like, as long as I get one swamp, the deck functions. And you do have 4, 8, 10 fetch lands that all get the swamp. So maybe. Feels so sacrilegious to keep cutting these Bomat couriers. But like I said, my biggest concern with this deck is not having a clean answer to Murktide. So I don't know. Is there like a 3 mana, 1 black pip? Oh, a disintegration card. Unlicensed disintegration. Yeah, that's just like destroy a creature, isn't it? Yeah, and if they don't have or if you have an artifact, it deals 3. If you don't have any artifacts. Let's see. Destroy target creature. Red or black? What about Shriek Maw? Um, Street Mall's 1 and 4 on the CMC, right? Street Mall could potentially work. Don't hate that option. Street Mall, Bone Shards, Kicked Blood Chief's Thirst. Check out this Shriek Maw option. It's an interesting suggestion. I do like the reduced cost down to 2. Helps with delirium. You don't have to have a target to evoke it. So maybe that's our answer. Is there anything? Soul Guide's like our only answer against decks like Living End right now. So we probably just want to play like the full set of Soul Guides. Just kind of say like we gotta have one of those. Then we've still got 4 cuts in the main to make. I think we're gonna cut the Unearth. Am I gonna cut the Unearth? Yeah. Cut an Unearth. Cut. No, I want to cut a heat. Maybe Agademe, since we can't cast it through a Blood Moon. How much longer we got? 2 more matches, and one of them is still in game 1. They can't have timed out because it's been 40 minutes. Ooh, Murderous Cut. You think we're going to be able to fill enough of our graveyard? You do like a Shriek Maw Murderous Cut split. I might actually like Murderous Cut more than Dismember. We don't really have a big need for our graveyard. But I guess Dismember and its like Shadow synergy is nice, but it only synergizes with Shadow. All right. We've still got 3 more cuts. So we could like move one of the moon effects to the board. That would be a cut. Or we could move like a Bone Crusher to the board. Agademe to the board. I feel like I want the play sets of Bone Crusher and Spyro. Let's move a moon to the board. We've got 2 more cuts. Maybe we want to cut one of these like 8 1-drop removal spells. Man, deck building is tough. Steven, what's up? Yeah, we're waiting for round 2, except we still got one match that's still in game 1. We beat Living End round 1 on the back of some Chalice of the Voids. And then I'm kind of messing around with Oba Shadow between rounds. Is Sultai Shadow any good? Depends how you build it. This build, probably not, but I just kind of wanted to see how Murktide would do. We played a build that we 4-1 with a couple times. It was running like Gurmag Angler, is I think like a 2 of on the top end. But it had like Gurmags, No Thought Scour. Pretty similar to the rest of it. I think we had like a Murderous Cut in there. But for the most part, the best variations of the archetype, result wise, seem to be like the Demir base, and just if you want to splash for like Tarmogoyf, doing that. I mean, you could just run this, fix up the mana, cut like a Stubborn Denial, a couple Street Wraiths, and like a Force Negation, and run Tarmogoyfs. And it's not too big of a switch up. But for me, when it comes to decks like that, I'm usually playing cards I want to play, not cards that are necessarily like optimal. So I have not found a list that I like playing that is also giving me the win percentages that I'm looking for. They finally finished game 1. We got Heat. We've got Fetch, Sorcery, Creature that we can get in the yard fairly easily. So maybe so. We can cut a couple Heats. If we did cut the other 2 Heats, we could throw in 2 Fatal Push. That might be worth it. With all these like zoo decks running around, there's a lot more territorial Kavus. Maybe we need to focus more on killing those. Fulminator was also one of the ones I was pretty iffy on. If you got Blood Moon, you probably don't need Fulminator. We've got 4 moons between the main and the board, plus Alpine. You probably don't need Alpine Moon either if you're running Blood Moon. So that opens up 3 spots in the board. I could add the Turox. Kroxa looks a little bit better here. Got a call. All right. As always, if your mother calls, you have to answer. Required by law. So we're still waiting on these last 2 rounds. I mean, this seems like it could be okay. Will it be good? Probably not. Will it be fun? Maybe. I'm not so sure on the Obnixilis. I feel like I'm just playing Obnixilis because it's a red-black deck that needs odd CMC cards. But I really don't think the card itself is that good. I think it's just another one of those, hey, let me give the decision to my opponent cards. And without, like, Scourge to combo off with it, it's probably not worth it. So if I'm cutting those, maybe I want to add the 3rd moon back to the main. I can't escape Croxa through a moon. Add the Dismember back. In the last spot. Maybe like a K command in the main. Or what if we do 2 K commands in the main, don't run the Dismember. Frees up a bunch of sideboard slots. For what? Run another push. I don't know if 5 moon effects is too much. Just gonna like really hate on the artifact decks. The last spot be. Oh man. I love going to like random deck lists on Goldfish to try to get ideas. Like, oh, I need some good red-black sideboard option ideas. This is not the one that was waiting. What happened to it? Oh, it was one of them timed out. So I just like randomly pulled up a Jund list. This one came up with 4 Channeler, 4 Tarmogoyf, 4 Bloodbraid, 2 Ashiok in the main, no Wrenn and 6, 2 Abrupt Decay, 2 Maelstrom Pulse, 4 Nihil Spellbomb in the main, no Urza Sagas, Pithing Needle, 2 Surgical, 2 Blood Moon in the board, with 1 Force and 2 Swamps, 2 Radiant Flames, Sword of Feast and Famine, Creeping Corrosion, 2 Tassiger, and 2 Bedlam Reveler. I don't have any idea how they came up to these numbers and these card choices. But they came expecting to play against something, and unfortunately it does not look like they ran into that something. Oh, this is the same person. I didn't run the Ashioks, or Ashioks in the board. There's Lily in the main. Cut a Fulminator. Got the Bedlam Revelers. How could you cut the Bedlam Revelers? Bedlam Reveler. Volume down a little bit on my end. It can't be loud enough to like pick up on the microphone, or it's going to cause a feedback loop. All right, 20 seconds before the next round. 1-0. The list I just looked at was just like some random list I found on Goldfish. This is what I'm thinking about playing next. Little red-black shadow with Obosh. Oh, I can't run Croaks with Obosh. Damn it. Okay. If we're up against something unfair, we can always like bolt myself, double shadow turn 2. We'll see what they do. Scalding Tarn, so I'm assuming like Murktide. You can squee though. You can in fact technically squee. You are correct. That is a line that is available to you should you choose to take it. Ketria, so is it Rhinos? Wrenn and 6. So creativity. Alright. Does that mean I am bolting myself here? Probably. Down a couple 4/4 shadows. Gotta decide if I'm going to Spyro next turn, which I probably should, just to try to get some chunkier shadows. All right. What do we got? They've got a land in hand, right? Because they fetched turn 1. Okay. So I guess if that's the case, I'm just swinging everything at them. Holding up K command and dismember. Now, I was one off lethal. If I'd like Spyro dismembered my own Spyro, it would have been 8 more damage, put them to 1. And then I'd have a lethal K command. I'd have to dismember a shadow. So I'd be pumping up 1 by 4 and reducing the other by 5. Am I afraid of double bolt? I don't think so. I think if they had double bolt, they would have killed one of my shadows last turn. See, Biomask, thank you so much for the follow. Hope you're having an awesome Thursday wherever you're at in the world. All right, so it's like Scapeshift. So Alpine Moons are good. Terra Sunder. Hits Dryad, but that's like it. Probably not worth it. Don't care nearly as much about EE as I do against creativity. I think I need endurance, Hearst, maybe Turok. And the name of the game is just going to be Go Fast. So, K command's like okay. Out. Bolt, because it doesn't kill anything relevant. Push. Keep in the bolt. In case we have a turn like that that last game. I just need to bolt myself. How's the deck working? Well, we beat Living in round 1. We're up a game on Scapeshift here, so can't complain too much. So I'm going to go for the Ragavan here. So if they play Wrenn and 6 on turn 2, ping the Ragavan, I can either like bolt the Wrenn, play another Ragavan, I can dash Ragavan into the Wrenn. Or they do nothing. Wrenn connects. Okay. So now do I want to Thoughtseize plus Tarmogoyf? How concerned am I? Veil of Summer. Yep. So if that's the case, I think we're just getting down to Tarmogoyf. I bought Zoomite falling into the trap. I mean, I don't think Zoo's too much of a trap. Like, it's got a lot of okay cards. I don't think there's anything there outside of like Ragavan that's potentially on any sort of chopping block. Okay. Let's start with Wrenn in case they have a counter spell of some sort. Then if they counter Wrenn, it pumps the Tarmogoyf. Fire and Ice. So let's get Overgrown Tomb, play our Shadow. They go. If they go to like kill our Shadow, we can bolt ourselves. Man, I play this game too much. All right. Seems like GG. Possibly. So get another Blood Crypt off that. So that's 8. We'll play the Ragavan pre-combat. Keep the old one. That'll put creature in the yard and grow the Tarmogoyf. Which means Goyf plus Shadow is lethal now. Unless they have an Ice here. Which it looks like they probably do. So let's attack in for 6. And pass the turn. We could like Fatal Push, remand our own Fatal Push to draw a card. And still hold up Fatal Push, but seems slightly unnecessary. My hope here is that this turn somehow starts with like a Dryad of the Elysian Grove. And I get a Fatal Push target. Don't say. Alright, so we'll respond to the Valakut trigger. Fatal Push a Dryad. Yeah, I don't care about Counterspell, because if they counter the push, then I just have lethal attackers on the way back. But I'm expecting, like, Remand. We know they have Remand in their deck, so if they Remand this, I can just get to Fatal Push it again. But either way, we're 2-0. 2-0, and our combined total match time is like 20 minutes. So that's always fun. Oh, now we got to sit here for another like 45 minutes waiting for this round to end. And so in the meantime, we'll figure out if this is just what we want to run with this list. I mean, if it's not that much, I'd probably just like go ahead and rent this stuff. So what do we need? 4 Polluted Delta, a Unbaked Canyon, 3 Blood Moon, 2 Magus of the Moon, 2 Shriek Maw, Modern Staple, Murderous Cut, Hooligan's Command, Bosh. We need 4 Bone Crusher. Man, Pioneer really spiked up Bone Crusher on Magic Online. They're like 11 ticks now. 2 more Seasoned Pyromancers. Shattering Spree. And a Bifrost. You cannot play Mishra's Bauble with Obosh. Let's make sure that's everything. Blood Moons, Delta, Sunbaked Canyon, K-Command, Agadine. This stuff rented, so whenever the preliminary is over, we can jump into that. I mean, I want to play Bauble. Like, if I could play Bauble and have Unholy Heat, I'd be a lot happier with the list. But we cannot. But again, kind of the hope is that the deck is like fully functional off of 1 swamp. I mean, outside of like hard casting Street Wraith, but whatever. About Fury over DRC. Maybe
But we'd have to find room for a couple more lands. It's like we're already only playing 5 drops that like aren't 5 mana. But if we go like heavy on the 5 drops that we actually want to cast, then we need to up at least like 2 more lands. Do I like Liliana and Jund Shadow? Personally, I do. Even if it's not like comboed with Ren too heavily. But it's just like another way to attack your opponents that Shadow hasn't been doing recently. Like, we've all seen the Grixis list that have started cutting like all their Inquisitions. So Thoughtseize is the only hand disruption. So this kind of variant is going back into that hand disruption aspect of like, all right, I'm gonna Inquisition, Thoughtseize, Liliana lock with Ren, whatever I can do there. K command. Like if I didn't think Kroxa was really slow and clunky right now, then I would probably like lean more into it as well. But not too thrilled on Kroxa, so not going to make an exception just for one card that has not been performing too great. But my main issue with Jund is I just think it's going to be like next to impossible to show any sort of consistency in win rate with a deck that's not running blue right now. Now that we've introduced like Leyline Binding to the format, it becomes pretty tough to keep threats around regardless of how big they are. Man. How much longer? Say how much longer, like we didn't just check 4 minutes ago. Looks like Demonic Tutors is 2-0. Pressure Bot's 2-0. Decent likelihood that we play one of them in the next couple rounds. But not much we can do until then. So like the Black-Red Scam deck. So this is like our variation of the Scam deck. Because Malakir Rebirth and an Undying Effect means turn 2 Shadow, and that's pretty fun. But as far as like the Scam decks in general, not necessarily like our variant of it, I think the deck's good. I think Leyline Binding made it a lot worse because now a lot of these decks have like a 1-mana way of interacting with a scammed creature, and you can't just like Rebirth or Undying Evil off of Leyline Binding, so kind of tough luck there. So now that a lot of the decks have gotten an additional way of dealing with it, the deck overall has gotten worse, but I think the deck is still like reasonable. Woo 2-0 indeed. Beat Living in round 1 and beat Temur Scapeshift there round 2. So it's nice to get some wins over some not great matchups. But I know Dogfish in here is a big Scam player. Even if they won't admit it. They won't admit it, they'll absolutely admit it. They've played a lot more games of Scam than I have, so I can tell you a lot more about like why the deck is not in the most fantastic spot right now. Good old Dogman is a scammer. Dogman is in fact an international call center agent trying to get you to sign up to download additional RAM on your computer. Kim, I don't know if I'm going to play Scam today. We're in the middle of the preliminary right now. 2-0 with Jun Shadow. So we're kind of like waiting for that round to end. I've just been like messing around with deck lists between hand. This game's still fine, but you can get hated on pretty well. Well, there you go. From the mouths of babes. Like, I know Scam has a rough time against like Murktide and stuff, so you're seeing that a lot. It's probably rough. Plus, Scam's always going to be that kind of deck that's like really good at stopping the opening hand, but your effectiveness is going to wax and wane depending on your opponent's top decks. Like, you can grief away your opponent's answers to grief all day long, but if they just top deck a way of dealing with it, like the entire deck can not completely fall apart, but loses a lot of its potency. Like, oh, turn one, I evoke a grief, I take your payoff, I Malakir Rebirth the grief, I take your removal spell for grief. That's 4 cards out of my hand, so a land, a grief, the card I pitched to grief, and the Malakir Rebirth. And I took 2 out of yours, hoping that this grief is going to like stick around. Then you untap, draw, play land, lightning bolt. Well, now I've lost like all the gas in my hand. You still have some cards. And I run the risk of like running a lot of pieces that are not individually powerful. Like, if you're empty-handed and you've got 2 lands and you top deck a Fury, that Fury at that moment is a bad draw. So Scam's got a lot of those. Like, I got 2 lands and top decked a Grief, a Shatter Skull Smashing, Aghanim, Fury, an Undying Evil effect. Like, it's kind of how the deck rolls. But the other list I wanted to fix up while we wait. Looks like this round is going a little faster, maybe. I saw this Jund aggro list and wanted to mess around with it a little bit. So it was running Bloodbraid Marauder, the 2-drop from Modern Horizons 2 that... if you have Delirium, it cascades. It's a 3-1 for 2 mana. If you have Delirium, it cascades. And I didn't think that card looked particularly good, so I replaced it with Death Shadows. And since we're not as focused on Delirium, I swapped out 2 Seal of Fire, 2 Tarfire for 4 Thoughtseize. Everything else about the deck is the same. Like, it was already running Bauble and Street Wraith. All I did was swap into some Thoughtseizes and stuff. But, like, Channeler, Ragavan, Shadow, Goyf, the 4 Bolt, 4 other 2 damage burn spells. 4 Unholy Heat. Figured maybe it had a chance to just, like, swing through some people. You also might notice that the list we're running today is not running Mishra's Bauble or Street Wraith. And that was a conscientious decision. I mentioned yesterday when we played the list that I just wanted like more gas. Like Street Wraith and Bobble are good for finding like your shadows and goyfs and whatnot. Uh, but if you don't find them, you spin your wheels a lot. So instead of those, we're running like more fatal pushes in this one. We added the Dismember in. We added a 19th land. And we're just saying, like, all right, here's more spells that, like, actually do something. So, whole bunch of Brins, Lilianas, Spyros, Riveteer's Charm, whatever. We're taking that route. So, we'll see what happens. So, still 3 matches left. Looks like one of these matches, Tixis, is in game 2. The other 2 are in game 3. Slowly and steadily, we'll wait for this one. I know it's super boring waiting between rounds. I wish we had more to do, but that's where we're at. I don't really like double queuing because I hate when like one round ends and the other's still going and like, clicking back and forth between rounds and Moto's already laggy enough. Last thing I need to do is add matches to that. What's up with arena content? You mean like the lack of thereof recently? So I played a bunch of historic because I was curious how it would go. Did well. We qualified for the September, uh, whatever the qualifier is, like the basically RCQ, and opened up like a good sealed pool and just had like terrible flooding uh, through my matches. Like started off really good, then just went downhill after that. So I haven't played too much historic since then. I have been wanting to try out the Founding of the Third Path in Grixis. It's like a 2 or maybe 3 of just to see what it was like. But I haven't tried it just yet. But we could probably have a historic stream one day. Be right back. All right, termite inspector. Be right back. We're back. Termite inspector coming through, asking questions. It's like shining lights all up and around, making sure we weren't. All right. I think we're keeping that one. Oh man, that's how it starts. No lander into no lander. Hammer time. Yep, take it. Got a hammer. Okay. I think I'm just gonna pass. Gingerbread. Sure. All right. Take 3. It's fine. So I have to assume this means that they've got a Pure Steel Paladin in hand. So I think we're going to go for a bolt on the Sentinel. That's a good draw. We'll go Thought Seize. See if they do, in fact, have the Pure Steel. You play Shadow. Say go. Why are you fetching and shocking? Liz Price, thank you so much for the follow. Hope you're having an awesome Thursday wherever you're at in the world. Appreciate you coming around and hanging out. Shocking again. Let's swing in with the Shadow. Ragavan, say go. Hope that our opponent does not top deck a Pure Steel Paladin right here. Okay. So I think I want to attack with both. So if I battle rage the shadow, they take 7. Gain 2. So I take 14, gain 2. That's probably not worth it. I could battle rage the monkey to kill the germ. It's probably not worth it either. Ooh, Nettle Sis put a bit of a ringer in the plans. It's going to be equipped to one, move over to the other. I gotta block one of this to be able to fetch. We need a 1 mana removal spell, right? So if we had found a 1 mana removal spell and they single blocked, we could have battle raged if they went to protection it with a giver, kill it, and then trample through for 24. But did not work out that way. Like I said, that a Nettle Fist actually hurt us a lot more than normally would have thought there. But we'll get to see how these Terra Sunders do. Since the Terra Sunder does exile instead of destroy, that can help out a little bit. In case our opponent does have something like welding jar, whatever. Hidden common, but potential upside. But other than that, we do just have like K command, all of our spot removal, Alpine Moon for like Saga and so let's see how it goes. Oh, I think Riveteer's Charm's better than Liliana. Liliana is always going to be like sack the worst thing on board. Riveteer's Charm's like almost always going to be stack either Pure Steel Paladin, Stoneforge, or like Sanctifier on deck. No interaction whatsoever. If this was like a Thought Seize instead of Tarmogoyf, I would snap keep this. If I was able to like turn 1 Thought Seize, turn 2 Double Shadow, turn 3 Spyro Refuel. But I don't think I can keep it with no interaction of any sort. This, throw back the Shadow. Then I'm tempted to just throw down the Alpine Moon on one named Saga. But maybe the EE on one. I'm going to throw down the EE on one. I know it looks awkward with Alpine Moon, but like if Alpine Moon takes out a Saga, then it's pretty well done its job. I'm not too concerned after that point. Just get you down. Okay. Bad draw. Do have double blacksmith skill and the Saga. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of one of these blacksmith skills. And I think we're just in race mode. All right. Well, I guess on the bright side, if this hasn't screamed stream sniping by now, like not playing out the saga for 4 turns is a little questionable. I get the double white, and I even get the last turn, like pure steel hold up skill. But this turn, I can't think of like any reason not to run out saga. Like, unless you just drew another blacksmith skill. You're just, like, bound and determined to hold up all of them. That's just, like, best card in the deck by a mile. So, in what world is it right to not play it out? I guess we'll find out. This could be 7 going at them. Saga Cauldron. Here's the saga, finally. And let's just go ahead and pop this EE into turn. Take out the Esper Sentinel. Alright, that'll allow us to kick a Tear Asunder, should we so choose. Could tear asunder the Ink Moth. Is that worth it? Means they have to block with a Sanctifier or a Pure Steel. Now I've got a Turok attacking in next turn that can't be blocked. Unless they find another Ink Moth. Then they have to give up Ink Moth and Pure Steel. Ragavan's even worse on the draw. know if I want to board out all of them, but my fear in this matchup is just always like on the draw, game 3, turn 1, Giver of Runes. I don't have an answer into turn 2, Stone Forge. Then obviously hands like this are really rough when you are worried that you're going to have to play into a Esper Sentinel multiple times. Better. Guard as aid. Sanctifier. Should I just play out the Turok? No. Fetching off Terrace under there. Alright. Well, if they've also got the hammer, there's not a whole lot I can do here. Just be one of these like, yep, you had the aid, you had the sanctifier, you had shadow spear and hammer. Moth Nexus. Play. So I'm just playing Goyf in a land. I need to fatal push something. I can. Essentially, as soon as they find a hammer, or if they find a hammer before I find an answer to Sanctifier, then game is over. I just have the hammer. Okay. I don't know. Like, to me, that match seemed really sketchy. I never want to like accuse anybody of stream sniping or anything like that, but there's just a lot of plays in there that I didn't think lined up. But if they did just like top deck the hammer, then so be it. But like they had the blacksmith skill. So if they had the hammer already, there's not like a lot of reason not to go for it unless you're playing around something. In which case, like, also streams wasn't during that game. I mean, like I said, I'm completely open to that not being the case. I don't want it to be the case. I don't like putting any sort of accusation out there lightly. But that Urza Saga Game 2 was really concerning. Because, like, I didn't give any sort of sign that I had an Alpine Moon. I even played out an EE on 1. And I understand that he had double white cards in hand. So I get not playing it on 2. And I get not playing it on 3 because of the blacksmith skill. But, like, turn 4, he drew the what's it called? The Cauldra. And there's no way you can take that turn with the impression of, okay, let me hold this Urza Saga in hand, so if I draw 2 more lands, I can hard cast my Cauldra. Like, no, you just have an Urza Saga that's going to beat me down unless you know that that Urza Saga isn't going to survive 2 more turns. So, Kumas, thank you so much for the follow. Again, like, I'm not saying, and I have to, like, be extremely clear with words, because God knows things get misconstrued on Twitch all the time. I am not saying that my opponent was stream sniping. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I do not understand the reasoning behind their play pattern in a couple situational spots. And I think that stream sniping would be the easiest way to explain them in a way that makes sense. But it very well could have just been that their plan was to hit lands and play Cauldron. So that's all I'll say about the situation. They don't need to defend their line. It is not a accusatory situation. I just don't understand the line there. And I'm sure, like background guy said, since they also stream, I would be 100% certain that if they saw the situation from my side, they would think, oh yeah, that's a little odd as well. And that is all that I'm saying. The play pattern seemed odd, and it would make sense from somebody who is sniping. But at the end of the day, like, I cannot complain about people stream sniping if I just changed my gamer tag on Magic Online to Control Freak _TTV. Like, if that's not inviting people over here to stream snipe, I don't know what is. So it's like absolutely fine if they were. I don't know, like, I've never been upset if somebody stream sniped. I know it's happened to me multiple times, and it's just kind of like something that happens. If you stream, you accept it, and anybody who doesn't accept it, I think, is living in like a fantasy world. Like anyone who says, oh, stream snipers are terrible people and shouldn't exist or whatever else, like, if you're choosing to stream, it's part of the terms and conditions, basically. But either way, we'll move on to round 4. I think 3-2 or 3-1 still gets like okay prizes. We get qualifier points and treasure chests. At the end of the day, we need qualifier points. But I'm more or less like interested in playing the challenge on Saturday. So I'd rather just like get solidified in a deck list for that. Looks like you might be facing demonic tutors. Guess we'll see. Yes, we will see. Like if we are, we are. If we're not, we're not. How's the matchup for Hammertime against like the Zoo decks? Is it pretty good? Are they just like fast enough out of the gate? Or is it one of those situations where like if they've got a leyline binding, list looks solid except for the charms. Yeah, I'm still not sold on charm, but want to at least try it out. Like, I do think for a shadow deck, this list is still very high up here. Saga Dudes over Kavu, so it should be good. Makes sense. Like, doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I figured it was a situation where, like, Hammer's got so many opportunities to go for it, and they're so much more mana efficient that if they just, like, pick a turn where they can swing through with an Ink Moth or something and can get one good blacksmith skill on a leyline binding, then that's probably, like, game over. No balls? No. So this is like part of the dilemma that I've been running into with Jund Shadow recently. Is I feel like for years and years and years, the deck has been built around the idea of I've got Shadow and Goyf is like threat 1A, 1B, maybe a couple role players in there, like your Grim Flayers, Dark Confidant, Scourge of the Skyclaves, whatever. But the goal has been to get Scourge or Goyf or Shadow down. So you ran like 4 Baubles, 4 Wraith to try to reduce your deck size to 52. A lot of lists ran Traverse to reduce it even further. And you just work towards getting one of those 2 threats in a battle range because that would usually be enough to clean up the game against most decks in Modern, like especially before Fatal Push became really popular. But then for a while we had to dodge like Skyclave Apparition, so we had to go up to like 4 Inquisition, 4 Thoughtseize, and then the rest of our deck. But now every deck has just got like good ways of answering Shadow and Goyf, whether it be Prismatic Ending, Solitude, March of Otherworldly Light, Dress Down for Goyf, Merfolk Trickster, whatever. What else? Now Leyline Binding, all these other cards. So if one of those 2 threats isn't working, we need to have like a backup plan. And the most consistent backup plan has been going to like a Jund mid-range style. So like the Spyros have been overperforming. Liliana's been good. Ren's been good. Ragavan, obviously. So just trying to like draw the game out a bit. So White, you say, I remember when Path was our band. Yeah, I mean, with like Shadow and Gurmag Angler, it was Path or bust. But now they just have more options. Have you thought about Fable? Might be better than Charm. So I think I would not play the first Fable until I've maxed out on Seasoned Pyromancers. Like, I think this card just does everything we want Fable to do, but better. Like, for 3 mana, it puts most times more than 2 power into play. You don't really care about ramping from 3 to 4, 3 to 5 mana with the treasure token. You get the draw or discard and draw immediately instead of having to wait, which can be relevant in situations where you have more than 3 mana. And then the things that you're copying are like Goyf, Shadow, Ragavan, so it's not like anything so crazy. Tupac coming in with 11-month resub. Thank you so much. Bringing those Prime Bezo bucks this way. Welcome back to the subscribers. Enjoy continued access to our sweet custom Death Shadow emotes. Bam! The only thing this deck is missing is Amulet Titan. So we just like board out these and we board in 4 amulets and 4 titans and just like call it a day. Fable's lower floor, higher ceiling, but it also feeds Goyf. It feeds Goyf if the Fable leaves, right? But like, you don't really want the Fable to leave, because then you're not getting the second or third ability on it. But I mean, like, Spyro does the same job of filling the graveyard. But for me, I think, like, Spyro coming with 2 other bodies has saved me more times than Fable could ever begin to imagine. But that doesn't mean I'm, like, against trying out Fable. It's just, on the surface, to me, it looks like it's significantly less impactful for what we're wanting than Spyro is. There are some times like that game 1 against Hammertime there, where I wanted to Spyro, but we would have had to have thrown away the Battle Rage. And if that were a Fable and I could have waited till my next draw step to tick up, it would have been a lot better. But I don't think those situations have been popular enough. Tupac, absolutely love watching your content. Well, I appreciate it. Means a lot. It's enchantment after they inevitably. So then it becomes, all right, I've got a 3 mana play that makes a 2/2 instead of Spyro that's making a 2/2 plus some number of 1/1s. Next turn, I'm discarding up to 2, drawing that mini, where Spyro's like always going to be immediate discard 2, draw 2, whether good or bad. And then the turn after that, they kill the token, or they kill the Fable, and you're left with a 2/2 that's making a treasure, or Spyro leaves you with 2 1/1s and the ability to recur the Spyro. So I feel like, for me at least, Spyro is what I'd want against like Wrath effects, against anybody running a bunch of spot removal, anything like that. Because the flip side of Kiki Jiki is like god awful against spot removal, right? Most shells where I tried Fable it consistently overperformed might just be. So what kind of decks were you trying it in? That might be one of the variations here. Because like, I tried Fable in our scam build, and it was like awful every time, except for I think one game where we got to copy a Fury against like a 4-color Rhino pile deck. But every other time, it was just like consistently worse than Spyro was. I mean, I see it being a lot better in like creativity decks, or where you actively want the token, or like the treasure, something like that. I see it being better in like decks that are trying to get up to 4 or 5 mana. So like your Jund mid ranges, maybe. But for this deck, it's usually I really don't want to get up to more than that. So yeah, creativity, Fable, I think blows Spyro out of the water. Obosh, maybe, since it does help you get to like Obosh. But Obosh itself synergizes better with Spyro since you get more bodies to attack through blockers and double up power of. But I guess like copying, I guess you're probably running both in like an Obosh list. Black red non-scam. Can maybe see it in that. I guess it depends on the list. Spyro, it's just, or an Obosh is just Spyro Fire. Yeah, I could believe that. Like, I think Spyro's probably better, and I'm not saying that Fable hasn't overperformed. It's just like, which one of the two do I want the first copy of? Because I'm not running 5 red 3-drops in this list. So is the first Fable better than the first or second Spyro? It's non-scam, but it runs Skelementals. Oh, get out of here. You got good creatures to copy. Your point's invalidated. You're copying Skelementals. Like, I wonder if making a second 6/1 trample hasty ditch 2 card is better than playing a Spyro here. Yeah, yeah, it is. I also got to try out Terra Sunder and Golgari at some point. It's like, so far, it's been okay, but I also just like haven't seen it when I want to see it. Like, we brought in 3 copies against Zoo yesterday and just never saw them. But what I definitely need to do at some point is play like an all-in focused shadow deck. So kind of like an old school Jund list with Bauble, Wraith, Traverse. Just like see what happens. Because I've been so off of Traverse because of like Urza Saga as a main deck hate piece. But it could be better just to try it out and see what happens. Shadowsphere with shadows? Absolutely. It's the conversation I always love because people... Cliffhaven Kite Sail does not gain you life. This is something that I am very, very, very I don't think adamant's the right word. Very opinionated about. I'd honestly go +2 or -2 charm, +1 Spyro, +1 2-drop, maybe even a Miser main deck Turok. I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. I think people have like such a propensity to look at a deck and say, okay, what is the worst interaction possible in that deck? And that determines their opinion of the list. But we pick and choose what that interaction is, like every single time a deck list is brought up. For example, nobody questions Murktide. Everybody just says like, all right, Murktide's a fine deck. Nobody's trying to reinvent the wheel with Murktide. Nobody's making big adjustments to it or saying that anything needs to be changed a lot. But at the same time, you're running Murktide Regent that wants to exile instants and sorceries in your Channeler Unholy Heat deck that want multiple card types all the time, and nobody says anything about it. But then as soon as you throw like a Shadow Spear in your Shadow deck, all hell breaks loose. Like, no, this is awful because you're doing that. Nobody stops to think about, like, okay, well, what is the Shadow Spear there for? It's there as a one of to get off Saga, to strap up to a Construct or a Tarmogoyf to make decks like Burn or Zoo or Merfolk Goblins a free win instead of just like giving up game one against those decks. Because you don't have to strap up the Shadow Spear. Like, nobody's holding a gun to your head and saying, you got to lifelink your Shadow or else you're giving up the game. But it's there if you need it. And it's one spot in a 60 card main deck that's otherwise, like, unaffected altogether. And that's why I think cards like that have a lot more merit than people give them credit for. Because, I mean, like, you question the Shadow Spear and the Shadow, and I'm not saying, like, it's a bad opinion to have at all. Like, I absolutely advise questioning everything, but people look at Shadow Spear Shadow and discount the deck altogether because of that, but we're 8-2 with the deck. Like, we've been winning a lot of games at a high percentage with the deck, despite the Shadow Spear interaction. And some number of those games were against Burn, because we just got a Shadow Spear that we got to strap up to a Construct and win. Or I think we like Shadow Speared up a Goyf against what's it called? Yawgmoth to trample over a bunch of Undying dude. Like, the card is really, really good. So, like, I'm actively not playing it for the evasion. I'm playing it for the life link. Because there's a lot of matches out there that you want that life. But what it allows you to do is, like, aggressively fetch, shock, wraith, get the full value of all your cards, and then late game you see, oh, we're going into a longer stage. Let me get a Shadow Spear and strap up a Construct, and now I'm not dead to a bolt. So, I guess all that to say, just, like, don't let theory prevent you from exploration or trying out ideas. Like, I'm gonna try out the new Kiki card. Just, like, why not? Throw some Fables in here. I don't know if I'm gonna try it today, but we will try it. Can't form a reasonable opinion if we don't give stuff a shot, right? So, to sum it all up, I appreciate people questioning choices. I love it. But I think this is going to be what we play next league. We're to play against round 3, Hammertime. Played against some Hammertime. Game 1, we got done in by a Giver of Runes, realistically, and couldn't find a piece of removal. Game 2, we ran them over. Game 3, we don't know if they top decked the hammer or not, but they just had, like, turn 1, the Garda's Aid, turn 2, Sanctifier, turn 3, we held up Terra Sunder, and they Shadow Speared the Sanctifier. And then turn 4, we like played a threat and tapped out, and they hammered. That's the downside of net decking, in my opinion, because what works for you, one person may not completely work for you because everyone evaluates things differently. Yes, 1000%. Like, it all comes down to how are you playing the cards? Because, like, I can build a deck and someone else can build the deck, and we can have 100% different results just because we play all the cards in a different order, different timing. We sideboard differently, like so many reasons. Love when people net deck and refuse to play unless it's card for card. So the only time I net deck is if I'm wanting to test out somebody's list, in which case we'll just like copy card for card whatever they're doing. So we could try to Beseiju somebody out of the game, but I don't think that's gonna do on for us. This looks a lot better. Let's throw back the Overgrown Tomb, so I can have the peat land around in case I want to start looping it. Yeah, seems reasonable. I love when people debate the lists like the author. Oh, when people like question the person who's done well with it. That happens a ton. I always like implore people to just try it out. Like, the more I look at Ren and 6, the more fucked up of a card it looks to me. I mean, it's a really good card. Turn 1 scammed. Well, if we do get turn 1 scammed, we've got turn 2 Ren. Get back a land. If they come back and hit us or hit the Ren, we can Lily Edict. Or we got that. So yeah, let's just get our mana online. Go ahead. Let's see. Let's see, I don't like that card, so I'm going to play that one instead. Here comes the gang to let you know why you're wrong. I mean, do they just have double scam? Well, if they have double scam, we're dead as hell. But at least right now, we have an answer to the Fury. If you run on Moto, I'm talking paper. I have a hefty collection. Always have a hearty laugh when people almost beg me to lend them an Emrakul because I can't play without it. Well, I mean, Emrakul is just an integral part of so many decks in Magic that it's kind of unfair to really ask anybody to play without it. All right, so do we think that our opponent has got another Undying effect? I can't imagine they do, because if you did, you would just, like, go ahead and get back the Grief and discard the Riveteer's Charm and have a Grief, right? I can't think there's a big argument for... No, we got to keep around the Fury. But maybe I'm completely wrong. So I'm going to upkeep Riveteer's Charm in case they do have another Undying Evil effect. They at least have to sack this Fury, get it back on their turn, and it's not attacking me. They do not. Nice. All right. We're just going Goyf plus Ragavan. Like, I could dash Ragavan, but I'm kind of afraid if they've got a Lightning Bolt or a push or something for Ragavan, then I just don't get the Goyf down. And I think I'd rather just get both of my threats down. Do they have both? Do they have a push and a bolt, or do they just misclick? Got it. Okay. What are you holding on to so tightly? I'll take Terminate, because I want to hit you with a Goyf. And I think I'm going to wait on this Peat land in case I draw a Liliana or a Spyro. But I'll probably sack the Peat land at the end of this turn. I don't want to sack it on my turn because I don't want to draw a 3-drop and them untap and have like Thoughtseize available. That's pretty good. Oh yeah. Carry on. Woo. All right. Game 2. First, I would like endurances are good. Terra Sunder's not like high up on my list, but a kick Terra Sunder does deal with all of their stuff. So I'll put it in like the maybe pile. I've net decked, I've brewed and changed some stuff, but I lose either way. I know that feel, bro. I know that feel. All right. Battle Rages are pretty meh. Probably trim on a Ren. I'm going to trim on some Hand Disruption. Just like not bringing the extra Terra Sunders. I like the Thoughtseizes because they hit the Furies and the Griefs and everything else, but I don't really want to go too high on Hand Disruption because they are also a Hand Disruption deck. So if we get to a top deck war, I don't want to be top decking a bunch of these and be top decking actual removal or actual spells. Those are the draws for scams so high variance. Game 1, keep a hand. Pray OP doesn't have a removal spell. Yeah. Pretty much. All right. I'm going to throw this one back, but there is that like 2% chance here where if I kept this and they had a turn 1 scammed Fury and hit me on turn 2 and I could get a Shadow down that's bigger than Bolt, big enough to tussle with the Fury, like maybe, but I think I can do better. This unfortunately is better. Go back to Swamp, say go. Hope you don't have anything too crazy. Luckily, I do have like 3 actual answers for a scammed Grief. Take my Liliana of the Veil. I wanted that Liliana. All right, what you got? Dalthy Voidwalker. Okay. So let's Fatal Push Dalthy after it gets down. That way I can save the Lightning Bolt for a Grief or a Fury. But since what's his name? Fury dodges Fatal Push, I don't want to like use the Lightning Bolt and be left with the one that doesn't hit what I want to hit. Uh-oh. All right. So we're either taking Spyro or Lily. I could take Lily, they Spyro, discard, terminate, whatever they draw into, make a couple bodies, and I hope and pray, but I think I'm going to take the Spyro and take my chances with the Liliana. Because I do give myself like a turn window here where maybe I can find a Ragavan or a Spyro of my own or something to kind of tussle with it. Ditch the Verdant. Also, am I bolting the Lily in case I draw a Wrenn in 6? I guess I can just bolt on my turn if I do. What do we got? We've got Terminate. What if we play Shadow and pass? They know about the Lightning Bolt. So we'll just see if they decide to like take down on Lily. Then I can kill off the Lily. If they use Terminate, then we get another spell out of hand. All right. Ravioli off the top. Not quite. I guess if they draw dead, this is at least an answer to the Liliana. Yep. Take up that Lily. All right. I was gonna say Hearse would have been a really good draw there. Okay. I guess we got to pass with that up. I'm probably gonna have to take two. Well, if they hit the land, like very dead to this Croxa anyway, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess I'm not completely dead to it. Speak of the devil. So they should be one short of escaping Croxa a second time. So if we terminate, find something relevant, like we'll say a Spyro, maybe they draw like another non-fetch land. On to game 3. Luckily, a lot better for us on the play than on the draw. I Kind of like these Terrace Unders a little bit better on the play, especially since they showed us Liliana, Seasoned Pyromancer, Turok, Croxa. So a kick Terrace Under deals with all of those. Endurance would look pretty reasonable if we found one. So let's go down a Ren. Do I want both Terrace Unders or all three Terrace Unders? Is that too many? Sport out Thoughtseize. Keep in my interaction. All right. Shadow or Thoughtseize into Goyf with a hearse. We'll fetch and shock first in case I'd find another fetch land next turn. Maybe there's a situation where I want to get Shadow down instead of Goyf. I do have a Feign Death. This one turns the 1/1 counter on it, so Lightning Bolt doesn't do it. I can take Fury as the payoff, but if they top deck a Grief, they can evoke a Grief. So I think I'm just going to take the Feign Death. Or do I want to take the Fury because I'll have the Feign Death neutered next turn with the Unlicensed Hearse? Let's take the Fury. We'll see how it plays out. They top deck a Grief for another Fury. Whoops. But at the same time, they could have top decked another Undying effect. So let's get down Hearse. Scam. Take away the turn 1 play and they do nothing for 3 turns. Yeah, but unfortunately their play on turn 3 is pretty reasonable. They just top decked second land Ragavan, so you know. Are you gonna bolt me in the face? Oh, you tease. All right. Well, could dash back. Hold back on the Ragavan. Kind of expecting them to just go like terminate, hard cast Ragavan. Go for the Spyro. Okay. We take those. They did find the Grief. All right, so let's Go ahead and get this Spyro out of the way. That's a good draw. So now we can attack him with Goyf. Or attack him with Shadow, play Goyf and Ragavan. Feign Death is gone. Spyro's gone. So here's Goyf. Here's Ragavan. Go. Yep. So I do know they still have a Bolt and a Terminate. Prefer not to put myself in a position to get double bolted out of this game. Terminate my Shadow. Sure. So block plus bolt with Ragavan. Okay. That's pretty good for me. At least now I don't have to worry so much about being double bolted out of the game. Right, put a Blood Moon on the stack, just for the heck of it. Brief. Okay. I guess. Let's not forget to curse this time. Okay. It's pretty reasonable. Do I want to... Do I want to just dismember this Grief? It missed a land drop, so if they got a Fury... I guess I'll hold it since I've got the unlicensed hearse. I can always, like, beat a Feign Death effect. Sorry, opponent. It's not going to work out quite the way you would like it to. Take my 2 free damage off Thoughtseize. Last card is a Ragavan. So if I find a creature, 6, 7, 13. Creature to crew Hearst, and I'm presenting lethal. We do not. I guess that means we are attacking just with the shadow. Go. And I think we're in an okay position here. We're definitely in an okay position here. Let's exile. Got sorcery in my yard, so whatever. I see. Okay, well, 3-1 in the preliminaries, not terrible. Obviously, we would have preferred the 4-0, but our opponent from round 3 is at least up a game. So if they win this one, we can at least say we lost to a 4-0. That makes us feel like a tiny little bit better, right? Super decent result. We'll take super decent. All right, so what are we playing in the league? I do think I want to play this Rakdos list just to try it out. I don't know if anybody's got any major objections, and even if you do, tough. We're playing Rakdos. So let's start our YouTube recording, and we'll go ahead and hop into